are the possible rational roots and how do you list them? The P and the Q thing. So what is P and what is Q? Bailey James. P is the factors of the constant. Q is the factors of the leading coefficients. And so the possible rational roots are the P's over Q's. If it asks this question, this is what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for P and I'm not looking for Q. I'm looking for the possible rational roots, which is the P divided by the Q. So 1/3, 2 2/3. Did everyone get a review assignment, both parts? I thought that's what you were doing. That's why I asked. Hey, how can you tell which ones are actually roots? Plug them in and see which ones give you 0. So everyone go do that. And I think we worked this bottom one on Monday. Is that correct? The one with the 72? And someone told me there was a 0 to it, but there's not. There's not. None of them worked. None of them worked. Were rational roots. It doesn't mean there aren't any roots. It just means they're not rational. Remember, not a fraction. So plug these in and see which ones work. Yes. Now, what's a quick way to do that? Table. Remember what we did on Monday? So, I would put this in my y1. And in my table, I would type 1, -1, 1/3, -1/3, 2, -2. I explained that when y'all were talking and not paying attention. P is the factors of the constant. So the 2. Q is the factors of the leading coefficient. P divided by Q, which is a big long list, is the exhaustive list of all of the possibilities for rational roots. Now, they won't all work because I know I can have at most 5, but those are all the possibilities. Now I'm going to plug them in my calculator and see which ones actually work. And someone tell me which ones worked. -1 worked? Any others? Just -1. Okay? Now, this says solve the equation. Find all real and complex solutions. It doesn't tell us how, doesn't tell us what to do, it just says do it. Will a calculator give you these? No. Now, there is a program that will, but I want you to learn how to do this by hand. But I want all real and complex. And the calculator will put decimals beside these complex, and I don't want decimals. I want the actual radical exact values. So I do want you have to do this by hand. Now, you don't have to do it all by hand. Do I know how to factor a cubic? No. So what's my only option? What am I going to have to do to make this something I can solve? I'm going to have to find a 0 and divide it out, right? You have 2 options. You have completely by hand, where you do the P over Q, or you could use the calculator. Remember the first day on this where we didn't know about the P's and Q's and we just went to the calculator and found the real root, the rational root? I'm going to show you completely by hand. I'm also going to show you in the calculator how we can kind of shortcut this step. Would you agree P divided by Q, since the leading coefficient's just 1, are just the factors of 30? which is a pretty long list of itself. $10, $15, and $30. So I'm going to take that list and I'm going to check those in my calculator. So step 1, type the function in y1. Go to your table. Yes. The P's and Q's. The P's are factors of 30. The Q's are factors of 1. So I shortcut this one. Normally I'd make 2 lists and then divide. But what is anything divided by 1? It's the same number. So all I really needed were the factors of 30. On this one, you notice I didn't shortcut the list because I needed to divide. Does that make sense? Okay, so I'm going to type those in my table. So here's what I'm doing. 1, -1. Any of those work so far? 1 works. Okay. 2, -2. 3, -3. I can go as far as I want. I will tell you, having one of them is enough for me to answer the question, because I could divide it out. Why would I go ahead and go check the entire list, though? Yeah, if I found 3, what would my work be like on the rest of this problem? I'd be done, right? I found 2 so far. -5 works. So 1 and -5 works so far. And 6 works. When I get to 3 that work, I'm going to stop. Why 1? No, go to your table, not your stat. Second graph. In your table. Wait, was it -5 that worked? 1 and +6. Okay, if I find 3, I quit because that's as many as I can have. If there are 3 rational roots, this is the easiest problem I could probably give you. I found them. I'm done. Okay, any questions about that one? Now, I didn't know that this was going to be an easy one when I started the problem. Someone tell me another way to find the -5, 1, and 6, since we do have modern technology. Yeah, all of those things could be found on the graph. What is the only thing the graph cannot find for you? The imaginary ones. So that's where we will have to do work by hand. But I do want you to know you can find these either by using the P's and the Q's or by using the graph and finding intersections or something like that. Okay, let's do another one. I'm going to shortcut P over Q again. Why would I shortcut that? The leading coefficient's 1, so P divided by Q is just the factors of 12. Yeah, I'd say probably by the time you get 15. Oh, okay. Yeah, by the time you get the, yeah. I'm going to see which ones work. Again, if you are on an exam and you've forgotten how to do the P's and Q's, and it asks you to find all roots. Now, you will miss the possible rational roots, right? You have to know how to do P's and Q's to get possible rational roots. But if it asks you to find the rational roots and you've forgotten how to do P's and Q's, you could find those in the calculator. Everyone know what I mean by that? You could go to your y equals screen and find the intersections. Like I said, you will miss the question about the P's and Q's because it will ask that. That would be the possible rational roots. And the college algebra final will ask questions about that.
Is the final like multiple choice?
It is. So you would be looking to pick out a list of plus and minus P's and Q's, which probably will help you know what you're supposed to do. You know what I mean by that? Because you'll see the list and go, oh yeah, that looks like that P and Q thing. And
They're going to be like multiple choice today or the next day of
no, it's all multiple choice. It's 2 days, but we only split it over 2 days because in college at Tech you have 2 hours to take the final. So we just split it in 2 days just for time. -3 and 4 so far I've gotten. And those are the only two I get. Is that what you got? -3 and 4? Those are the rational roots. Is that all of the roots of this polynomial? How many more are there? How do you know? It's a 4th degree, so I know there are 2 more. How in the world could I find the other 2? Hopefully, eventually, the quadratic formula. How do I get there? How do I get it down to a quadratic where I can use the quadratic formula? Divide those out. Synthetic divide. I'm going to have to divide both of them out since it's a 4th power. Do we agree? So I'm going to start with the -3. Now remember, I went really slow through this yesterday. Did I change the sign on that like I'm supposed to? Yes, because remember the factor is x plus 3. So I'm dividing out x plus 3. Could you do the 4 first? Yes. Add down, multiply, add down, multiply, add down, multiply, add down, multiply, add down. If I do not get 0 here, what do I do? I did something wrong. Either I changed the sign wrong or did something wrong because that would mean -3 wasn't in fact a 0 like I thought it was. Everyone know what I mean by that? This is now a cubic polynomial, everyone agree? This step right here is actually unnecessary, but I'm just going to show you what I have here. I have this cubic polynomial, but now I want to divide out the other root that I have because I want to get it down to a quadratic. To get it to where I can work it, it has to be quadratic. Right, there's nothing I can do with that cubic. Unless you had pre-AP Algebra 2, there actually is a way to factor it if you had pre-AP Algebra 2. Factoring by grouping, if you learned that in pre-AP Algebra 2. We didn't learn that in here, so. So I'm going to divide the x minus 4 out now. This step was unnecessary. I wrote it so you could see what we were doing. But you could just bring these numbers straight down and divide the 4 out. Does everyone know what I mean by that? 1, 4, 0, 0, 1, 4, 0. So now I have x squared plus 0x plus 1. Does everyone agree? So now it didn't ask me to do this. I'm doing an extra step. But if it had asked me to factor the polynomial looks like this. This is completely equivalent to that polynomial in the original. It didn't ask me to factor it, but if it did, that's what it would look like. It asked me to find the solutions, all solutions. I know 4 and negative 3 are solutions, and then now I need to solve x squared plus 1 equals 0. Quadratic formula will work, but this one actually can be done without a quadratic formula. Do you agree? Square root both sides. What is the square root of negative 1? I. Do you see why we didn't see that on the graph, or why we couldn't do that from the graph? Because i's don't show up on graphs.
Where did you do the x squared plus 1?
This right here, Lily. Remember, it was a cubic, so I've gone down another step. So this is a quadratic x squared plus 0x plus 1. And if you did the quadratic formula, you get the same answer. Either way. Okay, 14 through 30 even due Thursday, which is tomorrow. You already have this homework, right? So it's not an addition to your homework. We just did a couple more examples to make it where you could do a few more of them. Any questions? Friday, put an absent slip on it and turn it in. Tomorrow I am teaching, so make sure you watch the video.